Hello everybody, it's Sarah, and today I want to talk about Shadowhunters, the TV series. For those of you who don't know, Shadowhunters is a TV series that just finished its first season last week and that is based on The Mortal Instruments by Cassandra Clare. In this video I want to talk a little bit about what were my expectations for the series, were they met, was I disappointed or not, am I going to watch the second season, and just generally what were my feelings. This is going to be a spoiler-free review. If I mention any spoilers, I am going to say that beforehand so you can mute the video or fast forward or whatever. Before I get started with the review, I want to talk a little bit about what the Shadowhunter Chronicles mean to me personally. I first read The Mortal Instruments when I was 13 years old. I read them right after the third book was published in 2009. So I consider myself to belong to the original fans of the series. And I actually read the second and the third book before I read the first book, which might be the reason why the first book is actually my favorite out of the first trilogy. I picked it up because I went to a bookstore and there was like the recommendations shelf or whatever, and beneath Mortal Instruments it said, if you like Twilight, you will love this series. And at 13 I was hardcore in my post-Twilight phase. I only wanted to read like paranormal YA books, and it sounded perfect actually. And I was really interested. I picked up the second book and I noticed that it was the second book pretty late. I couldn't find the first book anywhere, so I thought, whatever, I'm just going to start with the second book. I was a bit confused at the beginning, but it all worked out. I ended up loving the series even more than Twilight. And after I finished the third book, I was just really depressed. I had a huge hangover, and so obviously I was pretty stoked, pretty happy when I heard that Cassandra Clare was publishing other books. Now, I have read the first 3 books of The Mortal Instruments at least 5 times, and so my love for this series goes pretty deep. So obviously I was equal parts happy and also anxious when I heard that there was a movie made. I went and saw the movie when it came out in 2013, I think it was. And I so wanted this movie to be great and to be good that I talked myself into liking the movie. And I only noticed how horrible it really is when I watched it for the second time, because I was just, no, it's alright, it's great. I love this series. They can't possibly make an awful movie following the series. It's just not possible. Then about 1 year later it's announced that we are going to get a TV show, and again I was really happy that this series got a second chance, and I was really anxious, even more anxious than before, because I didn't like the movie. But I just said to myself, you know, Sarah, it doesn't matter if it's good or not, because you know you're going to watch it anyway. So that's how I went into the movie. I followed the whole casting process. I was not 100% happy, but I have to say that I preferred it to the casting of the movie. And yeah, so that's all the background info, I guess, about my history with the Mortal Instruments. On the 12th of January, I sat down with Anna and with Hannah and we watched the first episode. And I have to say, I was pretty disappointed. Overall, I think the TV show got better in the later parts of it. But honestly, the acting wasn't great. The dialogue was mostly really cheesy and bad, and the action sometimes was pretty silly. I'm not sure that you can watch this series and think it's good if you have not read the books and if you don't seriously love the books, and that's just my honest opinion. Even if you love the books, if you really don't like series with cheesy dialogue, you probably won't like the TV show. For me personally, in the end, I said, alright, it's an okay first season. I don't think that I have ever seen a TV show adaptation where the first season was already great. I have to say I was disappointed with the last episode. It was kinda anticlimactic, but yeah. The relationships between the characters, I don't think that was built very well. I mean, Chase and Clary were just suddenly together, and in the first few episodes they didn't have any chemistry. In the later ones they didn't have any chemistry as well. But funnily enough, I don't care about those two. Chase and Clary are my least favorite characters now that I'm older. In the books, of course, I loved them when I first read them. But for me, it was much more important that the other characters fit into the whole story than the Chase and Clary were perfect. On the other hand, Alec and Magnus are just perfect. I loved how they exaggerated the relationship between them from the books, because in the first 3 books we don't really get a lot of relationship stuff between Alec and Magnus, but in a TV show we get a lot of that, and I absolutely loved it. I loved every second of it, no matter how cheesy it was. I was just fangirling. Honestly, I watched the show with 2 friends, and every time it was a scene of Alec and Magnus, we were just squealing, laughing and happy and rewatching all the scenes. It was really pathetic, honestly, but what can I do? I love those scenes, so that's definitely a reason to watch the show. I also thought Simon was on point. The actor really got across his nerdy essence and the way in which Simon is a comic relief a lot of the times, so I loved that. Last thing that I want to say about Shadowhunters, about the TV show, is that I loved the little details. It's just little things that you don't notice if you haven't read all of Cassandra Clare's books. It's like, for example, when they talk about Henry Branwell and Magnus and how they invented the portal, when they mention Tessa, when Magnus asks Alec out and tells him that there is a nice Ethiopian restaurant where they could go. And those little details were what ultimately made me decide that I was going to watch the second season, because the TV show, it's not as good as the books by far. Maybe it's not even a good TV show on its own, although I really did like some episodes. But it was this love to the details that really showed me that the people behind this series did look at the source material and did take care with the source material and even love the source material. So yeah, that's basically it for this review. I really think if you didn't like the first episode, push through at least the first 4 or 5 episodes. Then it got a little bit better. If you still don't like it, then stop or don't stop. I'm going to continue watching it, and I really hope that it gets better in the second season. So those were all my thoughts. Tell me what you thought of the TV show if you have watched it, and I hope I'll see you soon. Kiss kiss!